Across the great expanse of stars, stories often outlast the civilizations that created them. Some stories are forgotten, others twisted into myths, and a few grow into warnings told from one generation to the next. Among these countless tales, there was one that never fully disappeared. It spoke of a species called humans. The stories were strange and inconsistent. Some claimed humans were wanderers who crossed the stars long before most empires learned how to fly. Others painted them as warriors who fought without fear, standing against enemies larger and stronger than themselves. There were even songs among old cultures describing their ships as black shadows that brought both salvation and terror. Yet in the age of vast galactic councils and shining alliances, most believed humans were nothing more than a myth. The children of the Celery Alliance grew up hearing bedtime stories about them. The scholars of the Quran archive studied fragments of ruins said to be touched by human hands, but even they dismissed their findings as exaggerated legends. Leaders used the idea of humans as a symbol of courage, a reminder to stand strong when enemies threatened. Few ever thought the stories were real. Generations passed, and the galaxy moved forward. Fleets expanded, new worlds were colonized, and war was fought with advanced technology that made old conflicts seem small. In this age of progress, humans were remembered the same way ancient beasts were remembered on gentle home worlds. They were a tale to admire, not a truth to fear. That changed when the first signal arrived. It was faint, almost buried in static, but it carried a pattern that no one in the border stations could deny. The signal repeated every few minutes, pulsing like a heartbeat. The officers who first detected it debated for hours. Some thought it was a trick of the cosmic background. Others whispered nervously that it resembled the forgotten signatures described in forbidden records. Commander Oren of the Celery Border Patrol was not a man given to superstition. He believed in facts, in evidence, and in the strength of the Alliance fleet. Yet when he looked at the repeating signal, a weight settled in his chest. The energy reading did not belong to any known empire, nor did it match any pirate broadcast. It felt old, purposeful, and patient. He gave the order to investigate. A fleet of 12 ships gathered at the edge of the anomaly, engines glowing against the darkness of space. They expected to find a hidden base or perhaps a wandering colony ship. What they found was something else entirely. From the void beyond the anomaly, shapes began to emerge. At first, they looked like shadows moving against the starfield. Then the sensors sharpened, and the fleet saw them clearly. Warships. They were vast, angular, and silent. Their hulls were dark as iron, broken only by glowing lines that pulsed like veins of fire. No Alliance engineer had ever built ships of such design. They did not broadcast identification codes. They did not respond to hails. They simply appeared, sliding out of the void with precision, as if they had been waiting for the galaxy to notice them. The bridge of Commander Oren's flagship fell silent. The crew watched in awe and fear. The ships carried an aura of purpose, a weight that pressed against the mind even from across the gulf of space. They were not raiders, not merchants, not explorers. These were warships built for a single task: destruction. One officer broke the silence, whispering what many were already thinking. They look like the ships from the legends. Oren said nothing at first. He forced himself to breathe steadily. He remembered his childhood, when his mother told him stories about humans who fought wars no other species could endure. He remembered the warnings of scholars who spoke of fleets lost to shadows with no name. Those stories had seemed distant once, tales for children. But now, staring at the dark shapes moving across his display, he felt those stories breathe again. The fleet stood ready, weapons armed but not fired. The mysterious ships did not attack. They only spread into formation, their movements sharp and practiced. Every step they took spoke of discipline born from endless war. At last, a single transmission reached Oren's ship. It was short, calm, and spoken in a language no living officer had ever heard. Yet the machines translated it quickly. The message was clear. We are humanity. We return. The words struck like thunder through the Alliance fleet. Officers exchanged uncertain glances. Some whispered prayers. Others tightened their grips on their controls. The galaxy had laughed at the idea of humans. They had called them myths, shadows, or warnings. But now the myths had taken shape. Their warships had come, and with them came questions no one was prepared to answer. Oren felt the weight of history pressing down on him. If the legends were true, then these ships carried a force unlike any the galaxy had seen in centuries. And if they had returned, it was not by accident. Something had brought them back. Something dangerous enough to awaken the legends. For the first time in his long career, Commander Oren felt truly small. The galaxy had thought humans were only stories. But as the dark warships cut across the stars, silent and unstoppable, the galaxy was about to learn the truth. The galaxy had not seen ships like these in countless years. They hung in the void, massive and silent, as if carved from the very darkness between the stars. The Alliance fleet stared at them with growing unease. Their dark hulls seemed to absorb light, while glowing lines traced patterns across their frames, pulsing slowly like the steady rhythm of a heart. Commander Oren kept his voice calm though tension pressed heavily on his chest. Hold formation. Do not fire. Observe. His words steadied his crew, but even he could not hide the tightness in his tone. The alien officers on the bridge leaned closer to their displays. Every reading confirmed the same truth. These ships were not built by any empire they knew. The designs were old yet advanced, brutal yet elegant, and above all, purposeful. These were not cargo haulers or explorers. They were weapons of war. The fleet counted 9 warships. Each was larger than the Celery command vessels, with hull plating thick enough to deflect direct cannon fire. Their weapons arrays were quiet for now, but the power surging within their cores burned bright on sensors. It was as if each ship carried the strength of a small army. The first voice that broke the silence belonged to Officer Rill. His scales shifted uneasily as he stared at the readings. Commander, these signatures match the old warnings. The lost records said humans built ships that burned entire fleets. What if the stories were not lies? The word hung in the air: humans. Oren had heard it spoken only in old tales. He remembered as a child listening to the whispers of the elders. They spoke of a people who never surrendered, who built warships that roamed the stars and struck fear into empires. They were said to vanish when their wars were done, fading into legend. Yet here they were, not as echoes or myths, but real, solid, and moving with terrifying discipline. One of the warships drifted closer. It glided forward with smooth precision, no wasted motion, no hesitation. The bridge crew tensed, fingers brushing their controls. Yet still Oren gave no command to fire. He watched. He studied. He forced himself to think like a soldier who had survived countless standoffs. Then the transmission came again. The voice was calm, steady, and carried across every channel. The machines translated at once, and the words rang through the bridge like a hammer. We are humanity. We return. No more was said. Just those simple words, repeated once before the silence returned. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Some whispered questions to each other. Were these ships here to conquer? To demand? To destroy? No one could know. The weight of those words lingered like a storm building on the horizon. Across the wider alliance, news spread quickly. Within hours, leaders of distant systems were arguing across secure channels. Some called for diplomacy, claiming this was a chance to finally meet the legendary species face to face. Others demanded an immediate strike before humanity could show its true strength. Fear clashed with curiosity, and unity wavered. Meanwhile, Oren's fleet continued to face the silent warships. Hours passed, and still the humans did not attack. They held their formation, drifting like ancient guardians. Their weapons remained ready, their presence heavy, their silence unbroken. At last, Oren opened his comms. His voice was clear but firm. Unknown vessels, this is Commander Oren of the Celery Alliance fleet. You have entered Alliance space. State your purpose. The response was delayed, almost as if the humans were considering how much to reveal. Finally, the same calm voice returned, translated into perfect clarity. We seek what was taken. We will not leave without it. The words sent a chill through the crew. Taken. What could humanity mean? What treasure, weapon, or secret had been hidden away for so long that only now they had returned to claim it? No answer came. The warships remained steady, their presence unshaken. Officer Roll turned to his commander, his voice low. If they are who they say, we cannot fight them. Look at those ships. They are built for wars beyond anything we have faced. Oren nodded slowly, though his eyes never left the display. Then we must learn. Fear will not help us. If they wanted us destroyed, we would already be gone. The truth of those words pressed heavily on every officer. The warships had the strength to shatter their fleet in minutes. Yet they had not fired. They had spoken. They had waited. Whatever their goal was, it was more than conquest. Beyond the Alliance fleet, other ships began to gather. Patrols from nearby sectors, scouts, and diplomats all drawn to the site of humanity's return. The void around the anomaly grew crowded, dozens of ships forming a loose ring around the silent giants. Yet none dared to draw too close. Whispers spread across the galaxy. Markets buzzed with fear. Scholars dug into archives long sealed. Old recordings of human battles, once dismissed as fiction, were now studied with fresh eyes. Every empire wondered the same question. Were these the saviors from the old songs, or the destroyers from the old warnings? On his bridge, Oren felt the weight of history pressing down upon him. His fleet was the first to stand before humanity in living memory. His every choice would echo across the stars. The warships drifted closer still, their black hulls reflecting the starlight in faint glimmers. The myths had come alive. The galaxy that once thought them gone would now have to face them again. And Oren, standing at the edge of that revelation, whispered the words his crew already feared. The legends are real. The galaxy had watched from a distance, whispering in fear and awe as the human warships drifted into Alliance space. At first there was silence, a waiting game of tension. But soon the weight of their presence forced every council, every leader, and every fleet commander to face the truth. Humans were not myths. They were real, and they had returned. Inside the Celery Command Station, reports flooded in. Messages from far systems demanded answers. Some pleaded for calm, others shouted for war. Old records were opened, many so ancient they had been sealed away for centuries. They told of battles fought against overwhelming odds, where human fleets refused to break even when all hope was gone. In the great archives of the Quran sector, a scholar named Laron uncovered a tablet etched long ago by unknown hands. It described a war that had burned across 100 worlds. The words were carved deep, as if the writer wanted their warning to last beyond ages. When the black ships arrive, stand with them, not against them. For they fight what none else dares to face. Laron sent the message to the Alliance High Council, but it was drowned in the chaos of debate. Some leaders mocked it as ancient superstition, yet others read the words with trembling hands. Meanwhile, in space, the standoff continued. Commander Oren's fleet remained in formation before the 9 warships. He had spoken with them once, and they had answered with chilling clarity. They had come to take back something stolen. They had come with purpose, not chance. On his bridge, Oren studied the dark giants that waited beyond his viewports. He tried to read their intent, though their silence gave nothing away. He thought of his ancestors who told stories of these beings. Now he wondered, had those stories been warnings, or had they been hopes that one day humanity would return to stand beside them again? Then, without warning, one of the warships moved. It glided forward with silent grace until it came within communication range. A signal reached the flagship of Oren's fleet. His crew fell silent as the message began. This time, the voice was clearer, the words chosen carefully. "We are not here for war with you. We are here for what was taken by those who once betrayed us. You shelter them without knowing." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Who could the humans mean? What betrayal still lingered from the past? Oren pressed his comms. "If you claim to be humanity, then prove it. Tell us what you fight for." The response came slowly, as if the speaker carried the weight of centuries. "We fight the swarm. Machines without mercy, born to consume. They destroyed our worlds. They hunted our fleets. We carried the war into the dark so others could live in peace. We vanished so your children would never know their terror. But now they rise again. And we have returned." The words struck the bridge like a thunderclap. The swarm. Few in the Alliance had heard the name. Those who had dismissed it as an ancient fear, a story told to frighten young officers. But the humans spoke it with certainty, with the weight of memory carved in blood and fire. Officer Roll whispered, his voice unsteady. "If they tell the truth, Commander, then we are standing before the only ones who ever fought the swarm and lived." The human voice continued, firm but calm. "Your alliance shelters fragments of their kind. You do not know it. The traces are buried in your own systems. That is why we are here. To end them before they awaken." Oren's chest tightened. Could it be true? Could the Alliance, in all its pride and confidence, be unknowingly harboring the very enemy that had once devoured human worlds? The thought chilled him. Outside, the 9 warships spread into a new formation. Their weapons remained cold, but their movements spoke of readiness. They were not here as conquerors. They were here as guardians, carrying the scars of battles fought in shadows beyond sight. For the first time, Oren felt more awe than fear. These were not legends told to frighten children. These were survivors of a war the galaxy had forgotten, a war so terrible that even history had tried to bury it. Far beyond, in hidden corners of the galaxy, others were beginning to understand the truth as well. On the mining world of Vera, strange machines had stirred in abandoned tunnels. On the trade moon of Hera, whispers spread of black fragments moving on their own. The swarm was no longer a story. It was a shadow rising once more. And humanity, scarred but unbroken, had returned to stand against it. The galaxy watched in silence as the warships held their line. Their presence carried both warning and promise. To some, they were a danger waiting to strike. To others, they were the only shield left against a forgotten nightmare. On his bridge, Oren closed his eyes for a brief moment. He understood now why the stories had never truly died. Humanity had not been erased. They had been fighting, bleeding, surviving in the dark while the rest of the galaxy dreamed of peace. When he opened his eyes, he gave his crew a single order. Hold steady. Do not provoke them. They are not here for us. They are here for something greater. And in the silence that followed, every officer on his ship realized the truth. The legends had walked back into the light, and with them came the first tremor of a storm the galaxy could no longer ignore. The galaxy stood on the edge of fear and discovery. Humanity had returned, and their message was clear. They had come to stop something old and dangerous. Yet their silence and their warships made the alliance uneasy. To many leaders, they were not saviors. They were a threat waiting to strike. In the council chambers of the alliance, voices clashed like storm winds. Representatives from 100 worlds argued across glowing tables. Some demanded that the humans be welcomed as allies. Others shouted that they must be driven away before they grew stronger. Old wounds of distrust between species reopened, and unity trembled. One elder from the distant Avrek systems raised her voice above the noise. You speak of fear, yet you forget the words of the ancients. They warned us of the dark machines. They told us that humans were the only ones who fought them. If they are here, then the machines must be near as well. Her words drew silence for a moment, but then the arguments rose again. Pride and fear ran deep. Few wanted to admit that a species long thought dead might now hold the strength the galaxy lacked. Meanwhile, on the border where the warships hovered, Commander Oren's fleet remained locked in a standoff. The human ships did not attack. They did not retreat. They only waited, holding position like sentinels carved from stone. On Oren's bridge, tension hung thick in the air. The officers worked quietly, watching sensors, scanning every detail of the warships. Each passing hour made the crew more restless. They wanted answers. They wanted certainty. But none came. At last, another signal broke the silence. The human voice returned, calm and steady as before. The swarm stirs. You do not see them, but they are near. Fragments of their kind are buried within your space. If they awaken, your fleets will fall as ours once did. Stand aside, or stand with us. But do not stand against us. The words spread across the fleet and soon reached every council chamber. They carried no threat of conquest, yet they shook every listener. The humans were not asking for trust. They were demanding a choice. Oren studied the message carefully. He felt the weight behind those words. Humanity had fought in the shadows for ages. They had seen what the galaxy had forgotten. They spoke with the voice of experience, of sacrifice, of survival. Still, doubt lingered among his officers. Officer Roll leaned close, his eyes sharp with worry. Commander, what if this is a lie? What if they only want us to believe in a phantom so we surrender without a fight? Oren did not answer at once. He stared at the warships beyond his viewports. Every instinct told him that these vessels were built for purpose, not for deception. Yet he also knew the fear in his crew was real. Trust was a rare thing in the cold vastness of space. At the same time, news began to surface from distant systems. Mining stations reported strange signals deep underground. Patrols near forgotten ruins spoke of shadows moving without cause. Traders whispered of machines that repaired themselves after being broken apart. The stories were scattered, yet they matched the warnings of humanity. Still, fear often blinds more than truth. Several worlds demanded that their fleets be moved against the humans. They claimed the warships were already an invasion force. If the Alliance did nothing, they argued, then humanity would spread like fire through their borders. The Council could not agree. Weeks passed, filled with tension and silence. The humans waited. The Alliance argued. And in the empty dark, the swarm gathered. On Oran's bridge, the crew felt the strain of waiting. Each day they watched the warships, and each day their respect grew. The humans showed no weakness. They wasted no words. They did not boast, they did not beg, and they did not threaten beyond what was necessary. They stood as if they had already endured what no one else could imagine. Late one cycle, when most of the crew rested, Orin remained alone in his chair. He watched the dark shapes drifting against the stars and whispered to himself, "They are not here for conquest. They are here because they know what is coming." He thought of the warning again. "Stand aside, or stand with us." It was not the demand of conquerors. It was the choice of survivors who had no time for games. Soon after, another message arrived, brief and direct. "The swarm has awakened. They move toward your worlds. We will engage them. Decide if you will stand beside us." The crew froze as the words echoed across the bridge. It was no longer theory. It was no longer debate. The danger was real, and it was already on the move. For the first time, Commander Orin felt certainty. He stood tall, his eyes steady. "Signal the Council. Tell them the choice is upon us. If we do nothing, we will be swept aside. Humanity has not lied. The storm is here." Beyond the fleet, the human warships shifted, their engines glowing with renewed fire. They had waited long enough. The legends were preparing for battle, and the galaxy would soon see whether they had returned as destroyers or as saviors. The darkness of space was shattered by sudden movement. The swarm had arrived. Hundreds of small machines, black and metallic, surged from hidden corners of the galaxy. They moved with speed and coordination, their numbers overwhelming, as if they were a single living organism. Commander Orin's fleet reacted instantly. Alarms blared across the bridge, red lights flashing. Officers shouted orders as weapons powered up, shields strengthened, and ships adjusted formation. The Alliance fleet was ready, but even they could feel the weight of the enemy pressing against them. Above all, the human warships stood calm. They did not panic, they did not hesitate. Their engines glowed with quiet power, their weapons arrays aligned with precision. To any observer, it seemed as if the humans were predicting the swarm's every move. The first wave struck. Small machines darted toward the Alliance ships, striking at engines, shields, and weapons systems. Explosions flared in the void, and the roar of energy discharges echoed through sensors. Several celery ships were damaged, forced to retreat to avoid total destruction. But the human warships moved with unmatched coordination. Energy beams sliced through the swarm with accuracy no Alliance vessel could match. Rail cannons fired, tearing apart clusters of enemy machines. The human ships did not stop, did not falter, and did not retreat. They were relentless. On Orin's bridge, the crew watched in awe. Officer Rill could not hide his shock. "Commander, they are incredible. Every strike hits exactly where it should. They are not just fighting, they are controlling the battle." Orin nodded. He had heard the stories as a child, but to see it with his own eyes was something else entirely. These were not ordinary ships. They were vessels built for war, honed by centuries of conflict. Every movement, every shot, carried the weight of experience that no one else could match. The swarm adapted quickly. Machines began to form new strategies, surrounding the fleet from unexpected directions. Alliance ships struggled to keep formation. Without the humans, Oren feared the fleet would be destroyed in minutes. Then the humans acted. One warship moved ahead of the rest, positioning itself directly between the swarm and the Celery command vessels. Its weapons flared with energy, cutting through hundreds of machines in seconds. Another warship swept behind, striking at the swarm's rear. Within moments, the tide began to turn. Oren could feel the shift. What had started as a desperate battle was slowly becoming a fight the Alliance could survive. The humans were not just fighting, they were teaching. Every maneuver showed precision, every strike showed understanding. This was not brute force. It was strategy, skill, and courage combined. Despite the humans' strength, the swarm did not stop. Machines kept coming, wave after wave, determined to overwhelm. Explosions lit the darkness of space as Alliance and human ships fought side by side. Some machines were destroyed, others evaded, and the battle raged without pause. The humans communicated minimally, yet their presence coordinated the Alliance fleet. Oren gave orders, and the humans adjusted. The swarm faltered when humans struck in perfect timing. Slowly, the enemy began to retreat, regrouping for another assault. In the heat of battle, Oren realized something important. Humanity had returned not to dominate, not to conquer, but to protect. Their warships carried the scars of past wars, yet they fought with purpose beyond their own survival. They were guardians of the galaxy, standing in the shadows so that others could live safely. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. When the last wave of the first assault of the swarm was driven back, the Alliance fleet had suffered losses, but it still stood. The human warships, though showing marks of damage, remained mostly intact. Their crew had endured, their power had been shown, and the galaxy had witnessed why humans were once feared and respected. On Oren's bridge, silence fell after the battle. Officers worked quickly to repair damage and assess the cost. Yet beneath the tension was a shared feeling, relief. Humanity had not only survived, they had saved the fleet. Roll turned to Oren, his voice quiet but filled with awe. "Commander, I understand now. The stories were not exaggerations. They were warnings. They fought alone for centuries, keeping the galaxy safe." Oren nodded. "And now they fight with us. The choice is no longer ours alone. We can stand with them, or fall without them." The human warships slowly regrouped, engines glowing softly in the void. They did not boast, they did not celebrate. They only waited, prepared for what was coming next. The swarm would return, and when it did, the galaxy would face a threat unlike anything it had seen in generations. But for the first time, humans were not alone. And the legends, alive and powerful, were showing the galaxy the true meaning of their return. The battle was far from over. The swarm had retreated temporarily, but it would return stronger and more organized. Across the Alliance fleet, ships repaired their damage while crews exhausted themselves in preparation. The humans did not rest. Their warships glowed with quiet energy as if ready for whatever came next. Commander Oren watched the horizon of stars, studying the dark shapes that moved in formation beyond the edge of sensors. Every human ship held its position with precision, their engines radiating a steady hum that resonated like a heartbeat across the fleet. They did not speak much, but their presence alone gave strength to the Alliance vessels. Officer Roll broke the silence. "Commander, we have learned more in this first engagement than years of training could teach us. Their coordination, their timing, it is unlike anything we have faced or imagined." Oren nodded. "We are fortunate to stand with them. But the real test is still ahead. The swarm will return in force. And when it does, every mistake could cost lives." Minutes passed, then hours, and the tension only grew. Suddenly, sensors picked up movement in the void. Small swarms of enemy machines, faster and more numerous than before, emerged from hidden corners. The swarm had learned. It was smarter, faster, and more relentless than in the first encounter. The humans reacted immediately. Warships adjusted their formation to encircle the Alliance fleet, positioning themselves as both shield and spear. Energy beams flared, tearing through the incoming machines. Their movements were fluid, precise, almost effortless, yet every action carried power and intent. Oren gave orders quickly, his voice firm but steady. Alliance ships followed, adapting to the humans' rhythm. Together, they became a single force, combining technology, strategy, and courage. The swarm struck again and again, but the human fleet anticipated each move, countering efficiently and saving the Alliance vessels from destruction. In the midst of the battle, Oren realized the truth of their legend. Humans did not just fight, they commanded. They turned chaos into order, danger into opportunity. Where the Alliance fleet might panic or hesitate, humanity acted with certainty. Roll's eyes widened as a massive cluster of the swarm advanced toward a vulnerable group of Alliance ships. "Commander, they will be destroyed if we do not intervene." Oren's hand hovered over the comms. "Hold steady," he said, though his heart raced. "Watch." The human warships moved. One ship dove directly into the swarm, drawing fire away from the Alliance vessels. Its weapons erupted, destroying the leading machines and splitting the enemy forces. Another ship struck from behind, catching the swarm between two lines of fire. The coordination was flawless. In moments, the threat was neutralized. Every officer on the bridge understood the lesson: this was not luck. This was experience honed over centuries. Humans had fought alone for generations, surviving battles that would have destroyed entire fleets. They had returned not only to fight, but to teach the galaxy the meaning of true strategy. As the battle continued, the tide slowly shifted. The Alliance ships regained confidence, striking at exposed machines. Shields held, engines roared, and energy beams lit the darkness of space. Together with the humans, the fleet began to push the swarm back. The enemy's speed and coordination could not match the combined strength and wisdom of two forces fighting as one. Oren felt a spark of hope that had been absent since the battle began. The swarm, which had seemed unstoppable, was beginning to falter. Humanity had shown that even in overwhelming odds, courage, skill, and unity could turn the tide. Hours passed, and the swarm began to retreat. Small clusters of machines tried to regroup, but the human warships pursued with precision, cutting them down before they could escape. The Alliance fleet, inspired and guided by the humans, struck with renewed strength and determination. Finally, the battle slowed. The enemy scattered, leaving only remnants in the void. The Alliance ships were battered but intact. The human warships, though showing minor damage, remained formidable and ready. Silence fell across the fleet, broken only by the hum of engines and the occasional report from sensors. Oren exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of what had just occurred. "They have shown us what it means to fight with purpose," he said. "Not for glory, not for conquest, but to protect those who cannot fight alone." Roll looked out at the warships, his expression one of awe. "Commander, if this is what humans are like, then the legends do not even begin to describe them. They are stronger than anything we imagined, and wiser than any strategist we know." Oren nodded. "And now, we fight with them. The swarm may return, but we will be ready. Humanity has returned not just to warn us, but to stand with us. And together, we will face the storm." As the fleet regrouped, Oren watched the stars beyond. Humanity's warships glowed softly in the darkness, a promise and a warning. The legends had returned, and they would not falter. The turning point had come, and with it, a new hope for the galaxy. The void of space was quiet now. The swarm had retreated beyond sensors, broken and scattered by the combined might of humanity and the Alliance. The battle had been fierce, but for the first time, the galaxy felt a glimmer of hope. Commander Oren stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the human warships slowly regroup. Their engines glowed softly in the darkness, a silent reminder of their power and resilience. They had fought not for conquest, but for protection, and they had changed the course of history with their return. Officer Roll turned to him, his voice quiet but full of respect. "Commander, the legends were not exaggerations. They were warnings, yes, but also lessons. Humanity has survived what no one else could, and now they fight with us. The galaxy is lucky to have them back." Oren nodded. He could feel it too. The humans had shown the Alliance what courage, skill, and determination could achieve. They had faced impossible odds and prevailed. And in doing so, they had offered the galaxy a chance it had not earned in centuries. Across the Alliance fleets, communication channels buzzed with reports. Scientists, diplomats, and leaders shared their observations of humanity's tactics. Every officer who had witnessed the battle spoke of precision, calm, and unmatched strategy. The galaxy had feared the return of humans as a threat, but now they were seen as guardians. The human voice came over the comms once more. "Calm, steady, and firm. The swarm has been driven back for now. They will not stop. But you have chosen to stand with us, and together we will face what comes next. Protect your worlds. Learn. Be ready. And trust that we will not abandon this fight." Oren felt the weight of those words. Trust was not given lightly in the galaxy, but humanity had earned it. They had returned not as conquerors, but as allies. They had fought when others could not, and they had shown the power of unity against a common threat. Across the stars, the remnants of the swarm retreated into the darkness. Small clusters fled to distant systems, hiding in abandoned sectors, while others dissolved under the relentless fire of the human fleet. The threat had not ended, but for the first time, it could be resisted. The Alliance fleets began to stabilize, repairing damage and regrouping their forces. Communication lines opened with neighboring sectors, spreading the word of humanity's return. Everywhere, beings of different worlds paused to listen, to watch, and to understand. The legends had walked back into reality, and they were teaching the galaxy a new truth: strength is not only in numbers or weapons, but in courage, purpose, and the will to protect. On Oren's bridge, the crew worked quietly, checking systems and sharing information with humans whose ships remained vigilant. There was no arrogance in their movements, only focus. Their silence was not emptiness, it was concentration. They were guardians, ready for whatever came next. Roll finally spoke again, his voice filled with wonder. "Commander, humanity did not return for fame or power. They returned to finish what they started, to fight the battles no one else could, and to teach us how to survive. The galaxy has been given a chance we never thought possible." Orin looked out at the human warships, the legends made real. "And we will not waste it? The swarm may rise again, but now we know we are not alone. Humanity has shown us the way." As the fleets moved through space, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Planets and colonies, once distant and quiet, began to prepare. Scientists and engineers studied what they could of humanity's ships. Officers trained with renewed purpose. Leaders who had doubted now understood that unity and courage were the true shield of the stars. Humanity's presence changed more than the battlefield. It changed the hearts and minds of those who had feared them. What was once a story told to frighten or inspire children became a lesson in hope and resilience. The galaxy had learned that even legends could return, and that their strength was worth following. Commander Orin allowed himself a small smile. The galaxy had faced a storm, and now, with humanity by their side, there was hope that they could endure whatever came next. The warships, massive and silent, drifted like guardians among the stars, their glow a promise that the fight was not over, but it could be won. And as the fleet sailed forward together, humanity's message echoed across the void: no voice in the dark would go unheard again. The legends had returned, not to conquer, but to protect. And the galaxy, once doubtful, now knew the true power of courage, unity, and hope. The promise was clear. Humanity had returned, and the stars would never be the same again.